Welcome to today's episode of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. Today, Team Jenallee joins me to talk about fun projects with Canva, Buncee, Book Creator, Wakelet, and PowerPoint. We also get to hear about Jeni and Sallee's new book, the Microsoft Teams Playbook. Let's get to it.
I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Kathy from the Kindergarten Kiosk Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now.
Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect those of others.
Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast with Jake Miller.
Welcome. What's up, duct tapers? For the returning listeners, welcome back. I'm so glad you're here once again. For our new friends, welcome in. I'm so honored to have you with us. As most of you already know, my name is Jake, and I'm here to talk to you about duct tape and educational technology, and how, in my silly mind, the two of them go together to form a silly metaphor and, more importantly, an ed tech integration mindset that I think that you could use in your learning environments now. So I am really excited to be showcasing these two wonderful educators for you today. Jeni Long and Sallee Clark and I have become good friends over the last half a year or so. They just published a book on Elevate Books EDU just a few months after my book launched on Elevate Books EDU. That means that the three of us are part of the same family, but it also means that we've had a chance to have some behind-the-scenes chats as we all prepared for our respective launches, because we were kind of going through the same process at the same time. So we're getting to kind of compare notes and share with each other about the process and be excited for each other. And in that process, I also discovered, number one, these two ladies are a lot of fun. And number two, they have so much good stuff to share with educators. And so I can't wait for you to hear what they have to share. And speaking of what they share, they've offered to run a little contest this week on the show. So if you share on social media about this episode before the end of the day on November 10th, you'll be entered to win a free signed copy of their book, Microsoft Teams Playbook. Your tweet or post or whatever it is just needs to have some content to it. Maybe what did you enjoy about this episode? What did you learn about? Or why do you think other people should listen? And you have to include the hashtags EDU duct tape, Jenallee, which is Jenallee. I'll be in the show notes too for you, and hashtag empowered class. So hashtag EDU duct tape, hashtag Jenallee, and hashtag empowered class. If you've got room in there, you can also tag me and Jeni and Sallee, but the hashtags are what you really need. That's required. And you could tweet it, you could post it on Instagram, you could post it as an Instagram story, maybe post it publicly on Facebook, whatever. Just make sure that whatever you do, it's public so that we can see it and then enter you to win a signed copy of their book. And again, the deadline is the end of the day on November 10th. I can't wait to share today's interview with you. Well, I can wait a few minutes, actually, because I want to take a moment to remind you about my newsletter. The best way to make sure that you don't miss an episode of this podcast is to subscribe to the podcast, but the best way to make sure you don't miss a new blog post or an EduGIF or anything like that is to sign up for my newsletter. I also curate and share 3 of my favorite new finds from my own Twitter browsing and online learning in each newsletter. 3 things that have really wowed me, and I put them in that newsletter to share with you, if you subscribe, that is. Plus, whenever I put out something new of my own, it goes to my newsletter before anywhere else. So if you're not signed up, what are you waiting for? Just head over to jakemiller.net/newsletter to sign up. That link's in the show notes, but seriously, jakemiller.net/newsletter. Can't be much easier to remember than that, right?
Hi, my name is Katrina Scar, and I teach high school math in California. I would definitely recommend the book Educational Duct Tape and EdTech Integration Mindset. I listen to Jake Miller's podcast, which is where a lot of these ideas are built upon, and they are awesome. He brings in some of the famous tricks and tips from education famous teachers, including Robert Kaplinsky, Meredith Akers, and Tony Vincent. I really enjoy how Jake gives us tools and insight in how to use these tech tools. The book is going to help teachers by giving them a select number of high quality and really engaging tech tools, and I highly would recommend it.
Well, thank you for that, Katrina. You know, one of the best things that can happen in the teacher world is when you create a lesson or activity that is golden. You know, that lesson where, you know, next year when it's time for this lesson, my planning is as well done as a steak at Outback Steakhouse. I don't know, are they well done? I don't really want them to be well done. I want them to be like medium rare, a little bit pink in the middle there. But anyhow, the lessons the next year are done. They're ready to go because they were so good the previous year. You just dust that lesson off, fire it up, and you know it'll be a crowd pleaser. Educational duct tape soapbox moments, they don't work that way. They've all got to be new, fresh, fancy, exciting. Or wait, who made that rule? It wasn't you, Soapy? It was me? I guess you're right. Well, you know what? I deserve to pull back out one of those golden lessons or golden soapbox moments every now and then too, just like Teacher Jake does. Save myself an hour or so of prep time. Goodness knows I have enough stuff to do. So I'm going to rewind your educational duct tape podcast clocks back to February 27th, 2019. There's a lot of reasons I'd like to go back to February of 2019. But anyhow, in that episode, I was about to welcome Matt Miller onto the podcast, a moment that I'll never forget because Matt is just amazing. But first, before I welcomed him on the show, I needed to tell you about something that I read about in a book that I thought really applied to education. And it's the first time that I ever really shared it out there. And you're going to recognize it. And I remember this moment where I first shared it as if it was yesterday. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me just grab my soapbox from over here. Yeah. There we go. That's perfect. Climb up on there. You know, I never checked the weight limit for this soapbox. I hope that it's okay that I'm standing up here. Whatever. Today, I'd like to talk about the adjacent possible theory. I first heard of this theory in George Couros' book, The Innovator's Mindset. He got it from Stephen Johnson, who wrote the book Where Good Ideas Come From, The Natural History of Innovation. I haven't read that book yet, but you can guess it's on my Goodreads list of books to read. Anyhow, on the adjacent possible concept, Johnson says the strange and beautiful truth about the adjacent possible is that its boundaries grow as you explore them. Each new combination opens up the possibility of other new combinations. So in other words, what Johnson is saying is that the adjacent possible is this notion that a new set of possibilities is enabled by taking one step beyond the current state of things. Now, Johnson got this idea from evolutionary biologist Stuart Kauffman. You can tell I researched this, huh? Kauffman's work deals with evolutionary biology. The evolution of the idea from Kauffman to Johnson to Couros and now to me really is an example of adjacent possible itself. Before we get into the implications that I see in education, let's break down that evolution of ideas. Kauffman's work on biology and evolution helped him come up with this theory that each evolutionary step had to be a pivot from what already existed, not a giant biological leap. Essentially, biology didn't jump straight from an amoeba to the well-oiled athletic machine of someone like LeBron James. Essentially, Kauffman's idea explains part of evolutionary theory. Single-celled organisms had to come before bacteria, which had to come before jellyfish, which had to come before insects, which had to come before the earliest mammals, all of the way up the evolutionary chain to another physical wonder like Beyonce. Beyonce. Biology couldn't skip steps here. It could only move to the things that were one step away from what already existed. That's the adjacent possible. Aside from just being beautiful, Beyonce brings up an interesting point here. Her music wouldn't be possible if not for the music that came before her. This is where Stephen Johnson comes in and takes Stuart Kauffman's idea. He read about Kauffman's idea and applied it to his perspectives on ideas and innovation. He realized that any idea or innovation is dependent on the ones that came before it. It's often described as ideas that are just around the corner. People often use metaphors of rooms in a giant house. Think you are currently in one room and your adjacent possible is the rooms that are directly connected. Other rooms branch off of those, but accessing them is not possible until you move one room closer. Johnson theorized that ideas and innovation work the same. Facebook was only possible after MySpace happened, which was only possible after AOL happened, and so on. And now, before this soapbox I'm standing on breaks, I should get around to my point. Any educator's classroom innovations are dependent on the ones before it. You have to move one step forward before accessing a new set of possibilities, the adjacent possible. Oftentimes, an educator isn't even aware of those innovations until they step into a new space, thus opening up that adjacent possible. So, in my stories from recent episodes about my student-paced STEM course, I couldn't have created that whole class prior to using Google Sites, which I couldn't have done without exposure first to something like Google Docs. I likely couldn't have used Google Forms to track my students' progress if I hadn't first used it to perform basic surveys or to collect basic data. And I couldn't have added a Google Calendar for students to manage their pace had I not been previously exposed to Google Calendar. Let's think back to some of our educational duct tape guests. My first guest, back in episode 2, was Ann Radefeld. Years ago, Ann and I coordinated a class from my school and a class from her school, collaborating on ebooks and Google Slides and communicating via Google Hangouts. This would never have entered her mind had she not had that first Google Hangout with her friend's class in England years before. And it could not have entered my mind had I not been exposed to Hangouts in a presentation from Ann herself. So it became the adjacent possible for the two of us. Sarah Rivera in episode 3 talked about her students using PeerGrade to offer peer feedback. She could not have fathomed this possibility prior to using something like Google Docs just for collaboration. Andy Wheelock in episode 4 could not have created a virtual environment about the Diary of Anne Frank had he not been exposed to other virtual environments before that. Alex Orris from episode 5 was at some point exposed to the SAMR model, which opened up the adjacent possible of a menu of ed tech tools aligned to the SAMR model itself. Prior to being exposed to Flipgrid as a basic discussion tool, Sean Fahey could never have been part of a movement like GridPals and connecting with content area experts with guest mode. As a matter of fact, he could never have connected with Carly Mora, episode 7 guest, and created an ebook on Flipgrid without first accessing Twitter to connect with her. Talk about a catalyst of the adjacent possible. Twitter. It's huge. And one of my favorite Twitter follows is Carly. She credits a lot of what she uses in class to what she's learned from the CS and SF team. And had she not first been exposed to that, none of those other things could have happened in her classes. Could Angela Wotecki have helped students create ebooks, or Craig Shield have implemented Google Jamboard prior to helping students collaborate in Google Docs? Doubtful. Today's guest, Matt Miller, is a perfect case study of this. His awesome book, Ditch That Textbook, details his EdTech evolution from the day he realized his students deserved better than going page by page through his textbook. So each of those steps he took was moving into the adjacent possible. So what are the practical implications for you? Well, I'm willing to bet that most of you are not the average run-of-the-mill educators. To varying degrees, you're all thought leaders and catalysts of innovation within your schools. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast right now. So the best thing that you can do is to keep exposing your colleagues to your practices. Share, invite them in to observe, lead professional developments, present at conferences. And what about those other teachers still swimming in the shallow end of the pool wearing their floaties? Just keep moving forward. Each step forward opens up new possibilities. By using, let's say, Screencastify to record a flip lesson today, they may see the possibility of having their students use it tomorrow. And that may lead to them having their students post their videos on Flipgrid the next day. And maybe then share them with GridPals on the next day. And you know what? That begins to open up new adjacent possibilities for their students too. Look at that ripple. Keep moving forward from wherever you are and watch the adjacent possibilities of learning spread.
Today's guest.
All right, today I am here with Jeni Long and Sallee Clark, better known as Jenallee. They are global speakers, edtech consultants, bloggers, and now authors. Together, they have 40 years of experience in education. Everybody is now doing math on their fingers right now to figure out exactly how long they have been teachers. But this dynamic duo, as I said, known as Jenallee, is passionate about empowering teachers with technology integration and offering ways to make learning accessible and fun for all. You can find all of their contact information and all of their stuff, all of the goodness they do at bit.ly/Jenallee. And that's JENALLEE, as in half Jeni, Jeni, and half Sallee, SALLEE, becomes Jenallee. They're like Voltron, and now they're going to form right before everybody's ears here on the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. How are you guys doing today?
We are great.
Hi.
I'm so glad to have you guys on the show. I feel like we have been in parallel in book publishing land right now. We've got our Twitter direct message where we're like, how's it going? How's the editing? How's the writing process? And we've both been, we're like part of this crew now going through this process together. I'm so excited for you guys' book to be out there.
Thank you, Jake. We're so excited as well. And it's just been great to just kind of bounce ideas off of you and, kind of learn from your experiences. And it's just so fun. And we're just so excited to be in this partnership and this adventure with you as well.
Yeah, the whole Elevate Books EDU team, right? Quite a squad of educators in there.
It's amazing. And we have loved your book. And we were so excited when we got it in the mail and got to flip through it and look at it. And it's just a beautiful masterpiece. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, hopefully by the time we're hearing this, we're interviewing, spoiler alert to everybody. We record the interviews a little bit before you guys hear them. Spoiler alert. But we're recording before your book is out. But hopefully by the time this episode is out, I am actually able to hold a copy of your book, the microphone. I almost said microphone. I'm looking at a microphone. Your book, the Microsoft Teams Playbook. You guys are thinking it's coming out in early October. So hopefully by the time this episode comes out, it'll be out there and I'll have a copy of it. I'm so excited for you guys to get it out there. And to the audience, I got a little sneak peek at it and it is really, really good. I love how you have the team metaphor that kind of works throughout the whole thing and that playbook piece and really adds kind of like this skeleton framework to the book that then you have all of this good quality stuff built on top of it. And I was just wowed by how much good content is in there that educators can learn from. I think it's going to be great.
Well, we're excited to kind of make like a living book because we know with Teams and with anything technology based, it's going to be outdated before, it even gets out there. So it's been a process, but it's like we've written 2 books because we have the entire back side of our website and videos and everything linked with QR codes. So it's been a lot of fun putting all that together and designing it so that it's, hopefully it's really useful for teachers as they're experiencing this semi, online hybrid world that they are now a part of.
Yeah. How's the writing process look like between the two of you? Are you simultaneous writers? Are you in the same room writers? Or would you like come to your computer and open up the Word document or whatever you're writing in and find that the co-author had written like hundreds of words the night before that you didn't know about? How'd that go?
Well, Sallee, you want to tell this story?
Uh-oh.
Coming through a pandemic and really we started writing as we were starting our, quarantine back in the spring. And so life was changing and kind of crazy. And we were like, oh my goodness, Teams is totally taking on a whole new role that we didn't even use it for, back in the fall. And so we were learning on the spot and trying to write and just everything that we were learning and needing and saw that teachers were using, we were instantly just throwing it in and trying to create something that would help teachers no matter what kind of classroom they're in, either remote, simultaneous, or in person. And my husband actually took a job with FedEx during this time and was working nights. And so he would leave at like 4 p.m.
Okay.
Then get home at like 6 a.m. So I would be all by myself at night. I had my son, so I helped him and got him in bed. And then I would just like chill and write. And I text Jeni and she'd be texting me. And then we'd call each other and we'd be brainstorming and writing. And so a lot of it took place at crazy hours at night until midnight between the two of us on the phone. And then a lot of times I would write stuff and then Jeni would read it and be like, wait, what does that mean? And they'd be like, oh, this is what that means. And then she would be able to translate.
You'd be like, what time of night was it when you were writing that?
Or I would find things like Sallee is the very creative and we have our jobs, if you will, kind of fall in line with our strengths. So Sallee is very creative and she's just an ideas person. She's just very strategic and she creates graphically where I'm more linear and I have to, have things arranged. And so I did a lot of the QR codes and the charts and all of that organizing. And then, Sallee will go into Canva and she will just create. And then we she'll, show me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Or she'll forget she made all these things. And I'm like, Sallee, this is so great. When did you make this? And she's like, I don't know, 2 a.m.
No. Sallee blacks out while she's in Canva, apparently.
And then Jeni will be like reorganizing it all and putting it where we can actually find what we've done. So,
well, that sounds like great teamwork right there. That's amazing. That's awesome. What a great team. Well, okay, great team. We're going to see how great of a team you are with a little game right now. Are you guys ready for the little game?
Oh gosh. Okay.
Okay.
She's pretty competitive, so I know she's planning on winning.
Everybody's a winner in this game. Don't worry. But you could tell listeners now, like Jeni, you just gave that little short synopsis of your 2 personalities, and I feel like you didn't even need to give it because it was you just encapsulated it in your responses there. I asked, "Are you ready for a game?" And Jenny's like, "Oh gosh, I don't know. Maybe yes." And Sallee's like, "Yes, here we go."
Yep. My hands are crossed. I'm ready to go. I'm focused. Let's do this.
I'm sweating.
That's just from the fun. You're not having fun in a podcast. You're not sweating. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Okay, so here's what we're going to play. We're going to play a little bit of the educational duct tape version of the Newlywed Game, okay? I'm going to ask one of you guys, and we're going to have to read some kind of oath here to make sure you're being honest. We're going to ask one of you guys to pull out your headphones and not listen to the audio and just sit here quietly and be a good little student. And when we're ready for you, we'll tell you in the chat. We're in Zencastr here. There's a chat. Do you guys see the chat on the side right there?
Yes.
Okay, we'll tell you in the chat when it's time to plug in your earbuds and rejoin us, okay? And then we'll see how well you know each other and see if you really are such a good team that you should continue to be Jenallee, or if you need to file some kind of legal action to split up the proceeds from the book and everything like that, and maybe see who gets the Twitter handle. Maybe one person gets the Twitter handle, one person gets the Instagram. I don't know how you guys want to work it, but hopefully you just play the game really well. We have to worry about it. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Sounds good. Okay, here we go. So any volunteers to step away from the microphone first?
I will.
Okay, all right. Jenny's going to step away. So Jeni, if you would click the mute button over there and then pull out the earbuds, okay? And I'm going to say something and see if you hear me, okay?
Next to my name. Okay.
Okay, she's muted. I'm going to see if Jeni is really listening or not. If I say something mean, she'll probably come back on microphone to stick up for herself. Jeni, I talked to some of the students at your school, and they said that you're a little bit stinky. Sallee, she doesn't seem to be responding.
You said bossy, then she'd come on and be like, what? What are you talking about?
Jeni, I heard your students said you're bossy.
Okay,
she really is gone.
Yeah.
She's definitely gone. Okay, we're good. Okay, here we go. So, Sallee, I have 2 questions for you. You're going to answer them for yourself and Jeni, and we're going to see how good you get the Jeni answer here, okay? And
I'm ready.
Hopefully you'll get your own answer right here. So, my first question is this one's a little bit. We're starting the year off on the podcast with some silliness here. I want to know, who do you think Jeni's high school celebrity crush was? High school, middle schoolish age. Who did she have a crush on, a celebrity, when she was in school age?
Oh my goodness. Okay. There's a couple it could be. Now, she and I both are big New Kids on the Block fans.
Okay.
And we both grew up with that. So I'm going to go with Donnie Wahlberg, but she also loves Vanilla Ice. So it could be Vanilla Ice, because there is like a special story around that. So it could be Vanilla Ice or Donnie Wahlberg. Can I give 2 answers?
I will take it. We'll take it. There's not really very many rules on this podcast.
Okay,
okay, now we need to know who yours is.
Okay. Now,
or yours was.
I'm going to go with, Jordan Knight from New Kids on the Block. She probably will get that. But in real life, see, I'm giving 2 answers again. In real life, it was all athletes, but she wouldn't know any of them. So
so we're just gonna go with Jordan Knight then.
Yes, Jordan Knight.
Okay, all right. My second question, because we got to have 2 questions, is really make sure we want to make sure we don't get any false positives or anything here. If the three of us were in a pizza restaurant right now, and we were each getting our own personal pizza. We just read 100 books for Book It, and we each get our free personal pan pizza at Pizza Hut.
Okay.
What is Jeni getting on her pizza?
Oh, I already know this. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Because, well, first we would split the pizza. We would get it together. We would split it. She's going to get cauliflower crust with pesto and some oil. Then she's going to put probably either chicken or sausage on there. And then she's going to put artichokes.
Wow.
And then she's going to put, I'm trying to think what else. We do this a lot. Like we split food everywhere we go. So this is such a great question. I'm trying to think what else. The other day I added roasted red peppers. So she'll probably say that too, because that was my addition the other day.
And
feta cheese, definitely some feta, maybe some spinach. That's going to be her pizza.
That's quite a pizza. Right? I want a piece. I'm meeting next time Isti is fully in person. I'm meeting you guys for pizza, and I'm just gonna have Jeni order for me. Apparently,
yes.
And Sallee, what's going to be your pizza? Is that also going to be yours? You're just going with
pizza.
that?
Yes, we share that. Like
that's the pizza.
I all of our food. We always do it, so
nice. That's amazing. That's great.
Yeah. In fact, she already made us lunch for tomorrow, so she's bringing lunch for tomorrow even.
What a team. You guys are perfect. Okay, let's get Jeni back in here. I'm going to message in the chat. I'm going to say, we're ready for you, Jeni. Okay, and Sallee, you could stay and you could listen along with me to see what happens here, okay? Okay, let's see if she's coming back here. We're waiting for her.
All right, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Okay, she's back. We hear you. I was about to do the Jeopardy theme music while we waited for you. Okay. So Sallee has answered her questions and about you and about herself. She has done her half of the work.
Okay.
All right, Jeni. First question. We want to hear if Sallee was right about you first. Who was your celebrity crush when you were in high school or middle school age?
Okay. Well, if you're going back to middle school, because I'm quite a bit older than Sallee.
Okay.
It may be, oh gosh. I don't know. I think I know what she would answer. I'm thinking.
Let's hear it. What would she answer?
She might say somebody in New Kids on the Block.
Yes. Like ding, 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 ding.
Wahlberg.
Yes. Now, who was it really? You seem like that's not the real answer.
I'm thinking Michael J. Fox or Brad Pitt too.
Yeah. That seems like two different eras. I guess what would Brad Pitt have been in movies back then?
Well, maybe he's a little bit more in the
I guess 90s. He was in movies in the 90s and stuff. Yeah, so maybe. Yeah. Okay, Michael J. Fox, Brad Pitt, and Donnie Wahlberg, huh? Okay. All right. What do you think Sallee's answer was? What was her celebrity crush?
Ooh, I'm going to go with, I have two. We don't really ever discuss this, so this is interesting. Although she might have told you we frequent New Kids on the Block concerts often. So
you guys in Tisha Poncio need to meet up there.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Patrick Dempsey.
Patrick Dempsey, like Patrick Dempsey in the time when he was delivering pizza with extra anchovies.
It would have to be the new one of him, though. But see, but the story to that is I was always an anti Patrick Dempsey, and then I finally started watching Grey's just this past year, and now I'm like, oh, I get it.
Now you get it. Okay, I did not watch Grey's.
Or I was going to say Matt Damon.
Matt Damon, you are wrong, and and she's gonna if this all goes south, Sallee gets the Twitter handle and the Instagram handle for the Jenallee accounts. Sallee, you want to tell her what your answer was?
Sure. I stuck with the New Kids on the Block theme, thinking that you would go that route. So out of New Kids on the Block,
didn't even know half their songs.
Who would it be? Who would it be if it was New Kids on the Block? Come on, you know this.
Joey.
No.
Jordan.
Oh,
Jordan? I don't remember. Jordan. Yes. Jordan.
Gotta be Jordan. Okay, so now I want to see, because the three of us have been talking off and on about our own books coming out, and we're now part of the Elevate Books fam. So we need to see how well you guys know me. So I graduated from high school in 1998. So who do you think my first middle school, high school celebrity crush was?
Okay. I graduated in 2000, so you're definitely in my age range.
Okay.
All right. I'm going with Kelly Kapowski from Saved by the Bell.
All right. And Jeni, what's your guess? You have a guess?
This is my husband, so that's the reason I'm saying it. Demi Moore.
Oh, Demi Moore was yeah, Demi Moore, but it was definitely 100% Kelly Kapowski.
Yes!
You nailed it.
What? That's
100%. Kelly Kapowski, for sure. I actually almost wore my Saved by the Bell t-shirt today. Like, I literally, when I got home from work, I was getting dressed in my comfy clothes. I almost put that on. It doesn't have Kelly on it. It has Zach and Slater on it. But
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Totally. If I had to pick a second one, it would be, who's the girl on the show with Scott Baio, Nicole Eggert or something like that? She was number 2, but Kelly Kapowski for sure was first. Okay. All right. The second
awesome.
question, Jeni, and Sallee is 100% certain you're going to know this answer.
Okay.
If the three of us meet at a pizza place, I actually said that we all read our 100 books for the Book It program and got our free personal pan pizza at Pizza Hut, and we went to get our pizza. What is Sallee ordering on her pizza?
Well, she's probably going to split with me.
Okay, what you getting?
They wouldn't have all this at Pizza Hut.
No,
Right.
this is like pretend Pizza Hut. Like,
Okay, pretend Pizza Hut.
Mod
Okay.
pizza might be a better option.
Mod pizza, yes. So we would get olive oil base with pesto and some spinach and some feta cheese and some sausage and some chicken and some salt and pepper and mozzarella and some sun-dried tomatoes.
And what kind of crust would we go for?
Cauliflower.
This was like almost 100% perfect. You heard it here first, duct tapers. This is officially Team Jenallee. You guys get to stay together. You get to continue to be co-authors, bring us more amazing books and videos online and social media content and blog posts. You truly are the perfect friends, Jenallee. True.
I think we should patent that pizza as the Jenallee pizza.
The Jenallee pizza.
Yes.
I'm going to walk into a pizza shop one day and be like, I'll take the Jenallee. And they'll be like, what? Jeni and Sallee, no, from the new book, Microsoft Teams Playbook. And they're like, what are you talking about? Boss, the old man is back ordering the weird pizza.
Like, coming right up.
Come right up, right? Okay, let's get serious here, which I rarely do on the podcast. We're going to get serious, and I'm going to ask you an educational duct tape question. For anybody that's new to the show, an educational duct tape question is a question that a teacher might ask and that we will answer from the framework, from the mindset that educational technology is best used when it's a tool to solve a problem or meet a goal or address a learning standard maybe, or meet a need that a teacher has in the classroom. So we don't pick the tech tool first. We identify what it is we're trying to achieve, and then we pick a tech tool that helps us, like duct tape does, solve that problem. Does that sound like a good plan?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Okay, so my question for the two of you is, what kinds of fun projects can my students do to show their learning? So I'm really looking for if I want to go learn one tech tool that I could pass off to my students to show their learning with, what tech tool would you suggest?
Whew, this is tough because there are so many amazing tech tools out there that do meet our needs, and we love what you just said about why we choose tools. That's exactly the way Jeni and I view technology in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And the first tool we would probably lean towards would be Canva for education. And one reason why is we live in a text-heavy world in the classroom. And when we went online, all that text came online and became overbearing and hard to get through. And Jeni and I both have kiddos of our own with dyslexia. And so as soon as we went online, we were like, whoa, this is so much text to get through. It's difficult to understand even what the teacher's wanting for everything.
I agree.
And Canva allows you to visually present information either as student creations or even as teacher creations for the classroom. And it really does bring that wow factor to everything you make. You can do templates for Instagram, TikTok, virtual classrooms, worksheets. Really, there's templates for everything in this app. You may even find yourself obsessed, like you said, like Jeni mentioned earlier. Canva, I could spend forever in it.
Creating amazing comic strips at 2 a.m. that are like unbelievable. Like you'll see it when the book comes out. I'm like, Sallee, this is amazing.
I was so embarrassed. It was the whole story of like Jeni and I during COVID. And I was like, Jeni, we can't put this in. This is embarrassing. She was like, no, this is money. This is so funny. Like we laughed so hard at it.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet. I don't think that was in the version of the book I've seen. Now I'm excited to see
QR code.
No.
It's in a QR code.
I'm going to scan that QR code. When I get it in my hands, I'm going to be like scanning every QR code looking for this comic strip now. That's
Just
amazing.
For the comic strip. Where is it? No.
Yeah. So is that a template that's built into Canva? That's one of the ones available?
Sure is, yes. And so there are just tons of templates. But one of the things that we've really been focusing on this year is social and emotional learning. In fact, I was in a classroom today. She's a kindergarten teacher. Her name is Cheyenne McMillan. Shout out to Cheyenne. She's amazing. And while I was in there helping her with her iPads and getting stuff ready, she was showing me her mindful moment areas in the classroom. And so she's got like these super comfy rugs, and she has multiple places throughout the classroom and like little cubbies for the kids to like crawl up in and just take a moment to breathe. And I just thought that was so ingenious. And then she makes sure that every day they start the day with a minute of breathing. And so they watch this little video and they just take deep breaths and take time just to calm down and cool down. And Canva has made a huge focus on SEL.
Yeah.
We have tons of templates ready to go for you to grab and do with your students, where it does give them that time just to stop and reflect and share how they're feeling. One of the ones that we did, we took a SEL template and then we linked it to different activities. Like if they're tired, we linked it to a yoga video that they can do. If they're super excited for the day, but they're worried about something, we linked it to a Headspace video. We also did like some exciting songs where they could get up and dance and show their excitement. But after I went into Miss McMillan's room today, I was like, oh my goodness, this is like the perfect Teams activity that you could do is take the Canva template, throw it into Teams, allow the students to sit with their iPad in that little spot and choose which activity they want to do for the minute that they're there. But they really do have so many templates ready for you to customize and use.
Yeah, and those templates, when you put stuff into them, those could be links, like live links, right? It doesn't have to just be static content. So you could make it like kind of like a choice board kind of thing and click out the stuff, right?
That's exactly it. Yeah. So it's a dynamic website essentially. And so even as I change out the lessons, I don't even have to go back and change the link that I put in. It automatically updates inside of the lesson.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Too. And if you put it into OneNote, which if you ask Jeni, I can already tell you her answer. If you ask her what her favorite app is of all time, she will say
OneNote.
Yes. And so inside of Teams, it works perfectly. And so if you put this into OneNote, students can circle, they can write a little reflection, they can do all kinds of things within OneNote to the Canva template, which is now embeddable, by the way.
Yeah, so you could then create kind of, I'm going to say worksheet, even though that's kind of a dirty word to an extent, but like you're creating the teacher version of something, and then you put it into OneNote, and then it becomes editable where they can annotate on top of it and things like that, right?
Oh yeah, they can even add their own audio to it. So they can do an audio recorder and talk to you about it and share their thoughts that way too.
I don't. Oh, that's okay. I was going to say I didn't know audio was in Canva. Audio is in Canva, but you mean in OneNote actually. And I think didn't Canva just start offering some templates that work with Pear Deck too, right? That are specifically made for Pear Deck.
I don't know, but if they did, that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't think there's like a direct link where you can go. Maybe there is, but I'm pretty sure they made some that are SEL focused mostly that are kind of geared towards use in Pear Deck. I might be wrong. If I'm right, I'll put a link.
I just Googled it, and you can even search for Pear Deck templates inside of Canva.
Nice.
That's pretty awesome.
Nice. Yeah, we'll make sure we put a link to that in the show notes too, so that people can go to that and check that out. But I agree. I think the cool thing about Canva is I for a long time thought of it as just a way to make cool graphics, like visually appealing graphics, like maybe like a poster you're going to put up in your building or something like that in your classroom. But it's more than that, because it's not just static, paper-based kind of stuff, you could put in audio and video and GIFs and things like that. And even third-party apps, right? Like YouTube videos and Bitmoji and stuff like that can go into your Canva assignments.
Oh, yeah.
Or documents
In fact,
or whatever.
in our book, you might see a play that's called The Virtual Classroom, which takes all of their cool classroom kits, and we say goodbye Bitmoji Classroom and hello Virtual Classrooms.
I love that.
But inside of it, you can put any of your Bitmojis. And so we just sign in with Snapchat, and it brings up all of our Bitmojis, and then we can search within it as well and get exactly the one we want. So it makes making a Bitmoji classroom a million times easier.
Yeah,
and when we show this to teachers, they are just wowed because there's like labels and, just things that you can, order and print out to put around the classroom that are, calendars and planners and all kinds of things with all the same themes. So, not only for student creations, which are so many options, but we love seeing teachers create and make things for their students as well.
Yeah. My very favorite thing about Canva for Education, which blew my mind a year or so ago when I first learned about it, is what the education version truly gives you, which is not only free, what a content creator out there outside of the education space would pay for, we get for free as educators. But the thing that really blew my mind is the kind of like built-in learning management system that's there in Canva for EDU. Like I use, for example, in a CAD class I teach, I use Tinkercad. And sometimes I've done projects before with Scratch. And in both of those tools, you could have a classroom and your students can join it and you could see their projects, but they're not like organized by assignment or anything. It's like I can go into Jenny's assignment or Jenny's work and see all 10 of her projects and I have to find the one I want, right? But in Canva, like I can make a specific assignment and the work gets handed in and stays in that same spot, categorized by assignment, and I can comment on it. I could even create groups within the class. I mean, it really is a pretty great little mini LMS they have in there.
It is, and it's all set up for you. So when teachers go to canva.com/education and sign up, you can either sign up if you already have an existing like Google Gmail account, you can just merge that by showing some identification, or you can sign up with your school email and it'll automatically take you right in. And that's how we do it with teachers. Like, okay, you're in because you can see you've got your classroom, you've got your folders, you've got it already names your classroom for you, and they can immediately start grouping students and creating those assignments and giving that feedback to their students right there within that platform. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is a pretty great little platform. So, Jenny, I could tell by your responses there that you are a Canva fan as well, like Sallee is. But do you have a separate tool that you actually, or you also are excited about for this kind of like student project stuff?
Yes. And one of the things another tool that we usually share with our teachers is Buncee. So whenever people ask us for a fun, creative, easy tool to use with students, we definitely recommend Buncee. It's very kid-friendly. You can create projects. It's a great way for students to justify their thinking. They can practice different concepts that they're working on. Tons and tons of templates created by teachers for teachers. So, and one thing I love about both of these is there's just a community of educators across the globe. So you can always connect, and they have ambassador programs and things like that. But you can get on social media and you can always find someone else that has an idea, or if you have a question, there's just a great community of support within these all these applications that we've shared in our book. That that's the thing that really means a lot to us, is just it's not what I have or what I've learned, but I like to learn from others. So we think that's a huge proponent of these companies as well.
Yeah. But, so I don't use Buncee much, and I need to. It's kind of on my, I have a to-do list of tech tools that I need to get in there and practice. And I think the Merrills, Joe and Krista Merrill, first kind of hipped me to Buncee, and I was like, I gotta get better at this, and I haven't yet. So could you give us an overview of like what kind of stuff can go into a Buncee? Like maybe what tools is it akin to? Is it similar to a presentation tool or more to a graphic design tool? Like I don't know, what's the general kind of summary of what it does?
Yeah, I mean, you can create multimedia presentations. There's all kinds of things you can add in. There's preset templates. You can add in, links and images and, audio. I mean, there's just all kinds of things. You can upload your own images. You can use the ones that they have already provided. one time, just a great way for students to share their learning, demonstrate something. We did a lesson with stages of the moon, and phases of the moon, sorry. Mm-hmm. And, we just put the person, and then we were trying to, demonstrate shadows, but just having the students create that, when they can, some people like Sallee are very visually, that's how they share their knowledge is through visual presentations. So I think it's great that we provide our students with multiple options for them to share their learning, because some might like to speak it, with audio, some might want to do a video, some might want to use, all the images and things or draw. So Buncee gives you all of those options, and there's just so many things that you can create and do with Buncee. It's amazing. And there's boards, like you can add to a board where others can contribute as well.
Oh, cool.
We love the integration with Teams, of course. There are ways that you can actually go into a Teams meeting and you can create Buncee cards, which is perfect for formative assessment. So you can go into a meeting with your students and you can create these question cards and get quick, formative assessment back from your students as you're meeting with them. So that's one of the things we really love using Buncee for.
Oh, that's cool. I never heard of that. So is it kind of like a flashcard kind of feel, or is it more like a Pear Deck kind of Nearpod kind of thing?
Almost like a little poll. Like you can kind of throw up little questions and give them, answer choices, and you can have them kind of preset. And then when you're, ready in your meeting, you can just put the questions, launch the question, and it will come into the meeting.
Oh, that's
cool.
That's
one of the things.
Yeah, that's a tool I definitely need to spend some time with, because I love, we know, and I've talked about it a lot on the podcast over the years, that when we give students some level of autonomy over what they do, when we give them some level of choice over what they're doing, any level, they are going to be more motivated and give us better reflection of their learning. They're going to be more excited about the work they do. They're going to be more intrinsically motivated. They're going to try harder. They're going to take more pride in it. And we're also going to get a better picture of what they really understand, because they get to choose how they do it. And I love a tool like Buncee or Canva, because they can make that choice all within that same kind of walled garden that everybody else is. So the teacher can be comfortable knowing everybody's in the same tool. They're just all making different things with it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Choice boards, because you were talking about choice and how much, we want to make sure our students have choice and have that ability, but we also want to add some parameters to it to make sure they're within the realm and really hitting those driving questions and, strategically learning what we want them to learn. And choice boards are a great option. And Buncee has a ton of templates that we've used to create choice boards as well. So they definitely have templates that perfectly fit with that. And I can add in graphics, links, all of those good things for students to still explore and create on their own, while also staying within the parameters that I need them to.
Wow, that sounds awesome. I love that. Now, I think when you hear people talk about Buncee, because Buncee is an interesting tool to me, because people who use it love it, right? And like you said, there's this great community of educators who share what they're doing in there and are very excited about it. But yet somehow at the same time, I feel like it's kind of almost like an underground, like an indie ed tech tool where like not everybody knows about it. Like someday when we're back in person at conferences, everybody's going to know about Flipgrid and GimKit and Pear Deck and Nearpod. Like we all know about these tools, and Screencastify, and there's certain tools that everybody knows. But I feel like Buncee is not one of those. And it's kind of interesting how that's happening. And I feel like we need to get the word out there about how awesome the things that kids can do in there is,
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And we just love, and we live in the Microsoft world. And so another great piece of Buncee is it adds in, it's an add-in into Teams. And so when you're doing a conversation, you start a new conversation in Teams, you can actually share little Buncee cards, and they're so sweet. And many of them, Marie, the creator of Buncee, she has designed a lot of these, and they're just encouraging and, have a great day, but they're kind of funny and kind of a play on words with the pictures. And so that's kind of a neat thing to be able to send, like praise, if you will, but with a Buncee card. So that's built into neat. Teams as well.
Yeah. Now, what do you think? A lot of
integrations.
Oh yeah, for sure. What do you think of like ages for using Buncee? I feel like it tends to be, at least the people who are sharing it are sharing elementary kind of uses for it. Do you feel like I assume it's really good for K to 12, or is it not? What do you think?
I think it appeals more to the elementary, where I feel like I would probably go Adobe Spark, more for the secondary students. It just seems a little more mature in its look to me. Where Buncee, I mean, you can use it all the way K-12, but I think it definitely has more of that animated look.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that's a great thing. I've talked about on the show before where a kid doesn't have to use the same tool all through their schooling. Like it's not a bad thing to use Buncee from K to 6 and then start transitioning over to Adobe Spark after that. It's not like we should throw our hands up in the air and go like, I learned one tool and then I got to learn a whole another tool. Like that's actually good for them, don't you think? Because then they could take that knowledge they have from the one and now apply it in a new setting and kind of see what they can come up with there.
We were even just talking about that with curriculum the other day about the different apps they use for like math fluency and learning math parts. And we were like, those same two apps are going to get monotonous and boring after a while. And so being able to bring the same concept, like you were saying, like we have a certain thing that we're trying to teach. So now let's find another tool that brings, new excitement to learning. So it's definitely something to integrate.
Yeah, there's kind of a right mix, right? Where you don't want to be using like 15 tools at once, but you do want to bring in fresh tools, maybe a couple new ones throughout the school year, and then maybe a couple new ones every school year, right? Where the kids are seeing new things. It creates students who are, I call it technologically ambidextrous, right? They could kind of pivot from using different tools and they become better than using new tools that they haven't yet used because of that experience.
Exactly. And just like we tell teachers, we say, because they get overwhelmed with, should I use this or this or this? And we say, just pick one, own it, get really good and comfortable with it, and then you can move on to something else. But I think that, they're all somewhat similar in the design of the creation tools. So I think it's good to have that variety because each, whatever you're presented with, your outcome, each tool might have a different purpose. So being able to kind of be versatile and pick and choose, I think that's very important.
And a lot of these tools are very intuitive, right? Like even Scratch, when I go into Scratch, it's intuitive for me to figure out how to do it. And our kids do, like, especially when they use the app. I mean, Scratch here is really easy. But I mean, that is, they're pretty easy to pick up and that's the way they've been designed. And so, own one, get to know it, and then, bring in some more excitement and different opportunities for your students to learn in a different app.
Yeah, I agree that most of these tools, once you try them out, and if at first it's kind of low cognitive demand and low risk when they're first trying it out and they feel comfortable just kind of exploring it, both the teacher and the student, I think we find that we pick them up very quickly and generate some really cool ideas for how we could use them.
Yeah, for sure.
Two other tools that I would throw in there. There's a lot of tools that I think are great for this. There's actually in the educational duct tape book, this is kind of similar to one question that I address in one chapter is, what are some rich ways for my students to demonstrate their learning? And I talk about some audio tools and some video tools and some graphic tools and some animation tools. And at the end, I talk about what I call the Swiss Army knife tools, where it's that choice thing we were talking about earlier, where you can put your kids in there, and those who are comfortable doing video can do it, and those who are comfortable doing audio can do it, and those who are comfortable drawing can do it, and everybody gets to kind of choose their own thing all within that same tool. So it's a tool that does all of them. And Canva for EDU is one that I mentioned in there. Buncee is one that I don't, but I should have. Two other that I would throw in there are Book Creator and Jenallee, and there's actually others, but Book Creator, I think people just think kind of to the way people think that Canva is just for graphics. People think Book Creator is just for ebooks, and they don't realize how much you could put into a Book Creator book. It's kind of the same thing. Put in GIFs, put in videos, put in audio, put in all of that stuff, and then the kids have their choice of what they're going to use, right? Are you guys Book Creator users?
No, and that was on our bucket list, if you will, for this year. We were like, we are going to make Book Creator our focus, and we just we haven't had time to really dive in yet and share that. But Sallee, we are putting that on our list to investigate and learn more so we can share that with our teachers, because we've heard,
Yeah.
And I have used it in my previous district, and we loved it. But they have had so many changes and improvements. I have not had a chance to dive in. So it's definitely on our list.
Yeah, same for me. I used it years ago.
Yeah, when it was probably iPad only and stuff like that. It really was, at that point, it really was more of just an ebook creator. And now it's so much more.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's an important lesson for people listening to hear too, that here the three of us sit, all three of us now authors about educational technology books, comfortable admitting, like I'm comfortable saying, like, I know what Buncee is, I have an idea of what it could do, but I haven't really used it. And you guys saying, I know what Book Creator is, I used it before, I haven't used it in a long time, and it's on my to-do list to learn about. And that's okay, right? It's okay to do that. And for a classroom teacher that maybe isn't as motivated about technology as we are, it's okay for them to ignore those other tools and just say, you know what, I've got my Buncee, or I've got my Canva, or I've got my Book Creator, whichever one it is, and that's good enough. And that's okay. But for somebody who maybe is excited about trying a new shiny toy, it's okay to kind of have a to-do list of things that you're going to learn about someday, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think Wakelet is another one of those for people. You know, we introduce and share about Wakelet all the time, but people are like, okay, I'll learn that, you know, keep that in the back of my pocket. But that's another great one.
Yeah. Wakelet's kind of cool for this kind of idea here, because the kids can't really create the stuff inside of the Wakelet, but what they could do inside of the Wakelet is either they could curate stuff, which is a great skill for kids to develop, be able to curate just the important stuff, but also it could be a great place to gather stuff, either for one student to gather maybe all their projects or all the elements of their project, or for the teacher to gather everybody's together and create this one place where you can see it.
Some of our high school art students use it to create portfolios of their art throughout the year. And they went with Wakelet because Wakelet does not own their photos. Some of the other apps they looked at, the app said they actually own your work whenever you upload it into the app. And these are aspiring art students. And so Wakelet does not own it. It's just curating it and housing it. And so the students have created their own portfolios, but they can comment on each other's work and give feedback to each other through the chat or through the comment features. That's really a great option.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really great addition, kind of leveling up the projects where it's not just one project, it becomes their digital portfolio space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I've got to be honest, I have like 5 more tools that I could potentially name here. And I'm betting that you two do as well. Like, you haven't named half of the tools that you name in your book, and half of the ones, and most of the ones in your book could answer this question. And I think it just shows to the teachers that you pick something that works for you. You think about what works best with your style, with your content, with the age of your students, with what you're trying to achieve, and you pick the one that fits best for you. And I think, the 4 we talked about here, Canva and Buncee and Book Creator and Wakelet, they're 4 tools that are pretty different yet the same, right? And that's one thing I like about these ed tech tools is when you, as a teacher, think about which one am I going to use. Really, when you look at what they each do, I think it's pretty easy to narrow down which one's the right one for you. There's not a best one of these tools. There's just a best for each person.
Exactly. And even PowerPoint is still fine. If you teachers, there's so much you can do with PowerPoint or Google Slides that can do a lot of these things. Like, you don't have to be super adventurous, if you want to stick with the things that you can do in there. And we still learn things every day that we didn't know you could do in PowerPoint.
Yep.
So every tool has little things that you can do multiple purposes of, just like all the other great things we're talking about.
Yeah. That's great. Good shares, you two. Not only do you two get to continue to be Jenallee, I think you are going to now have a bunch more people, all the duct tapers, if they aren't already following the two of you, which I'm guessing they are. But if they're not already following you, I think they're going to run out and follow you. And hopefully we're airing this episode and the book is out there, the Microsoft Teams Playbook, and they'll be running out there and getting a copy of it. I don't know where they're going to run to your phone and click on Amazon.
Yes.
And order that, but I will definitely put a link to that in the show notes. And then I think we were talking about Canva earlier. Do you guys have a Canva course coming up soon too?
Sure. We actually just created it for the Microsoft Educator community, and so we call it the MEC. But if you go to education.microsoft.com, you can find a free course over Canva and how it integrates with Microsoft products as well. But you also will learn a lot of what Canva is, the basics of it and how to use it, and then also how you can integrate it with the Microsoft community.
Love it. That's that's perfect timing. So those of you out there who are listening and thinking like, I need to start using Canva. Well, there's your course to learn how about using Canva from Jenallee, the duo right there. You could learn from them.
And one thing too, Jake, on that Educator Center, the Microsoft Educator Center, there are courses for Buncee also. There are courses for so many different apps, not just, there's Flipgrid, there's all kinds of it. Yes, Wakelet. Yep.
Pretty much everything we named today. There's a course out there for it. Great. Everybody's going to be running.
And they're free. Yep. Yes. They're free. So
that's awesome. That's a great, I'll make sure I put a link to that in the show notes so everybody can see that in there. Well, you two, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for putting up with me embarrassing you, talking about your high school celebrity crushes and your weird pizza ordering that the two of you participated in.
Listen, you got to try it. It is really good.
I'm in. I will try it. But I am so honored to have had you guys on the show. I'm so excited to see that book in person and get my hands on it. It is such a great piece of work, and educators are going to benefit so much from it, just like they benefited from hearing you guys today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us, Jake. We really appreciate it. It's been great, and we can't wait to see you in person and get you to autograph your book that we have a copy of.
I'm bringing the marker, and we're both autographing each other's books. It's going to be
great. We'll have an autograph party.
Yes. Wow. I hope that you enjoyed that one. Jeni and Sallee are awesome. I hope that you're going to go follow them and maybe even check out their new book. Let's review what we talked about today. So Jeni and Sallee both geeked out about Canva for EDU, and so did I, and how great it is for teachers and students. I love their focus on using more images and less words. And a tool like Canva for EDU is a really great way to do that, to bring in imagery and icons and things like that to convey information and limit the amount of words that we're putting in our instructions and our activities and things like that. They also talked about making comic strips and dynamic websites and Pear Deck templates with Canva and the awesome LMS-like features that are in the free EDU version. Seriously, if you have not checked out the EDU version of Canva that you have free access to with your teacher account, do check that out, because it really has like a learning management system kind of built right into it. Jeni and Sallee also shared about Buncee, which seriously, guys, can we all just agree to go try Buncee now? I feel like whenever somebody mentions Buncee, me and the rest of you are like, I've heard of it, but I haven't really tried it out. Like, I know some of you have, but many of us are like, I haven't tried it out. And some of you are like nodding along with me right now as I say this. We all need to agree now to go try it out. Seriously, there are templates there's templates available. There's a great community. There's lots of options for things that you can put into your presentations. There's collaborative boards. There's great integration with Teams and more. Guys, let's all go try it. And while we're at it, we could try out the other things that Jeni and Sallee talked about, including Book Creator and Wakelet and PowerPoint. I've got to say, when you're trying to do something like this with student projects and having your students be creative, you really can't go wrong. Like, we listed 5 things here, but there are lots of other things that you could do potentially that would fit great in here. As long as you're giving them a chance to create, you're going to be pleased with the results. So these 5 options here are really good ones, but there are lots more out there. Okay, don't forget, Jeni and Sallee have offered to run a little contest for the podcast this week. So if you share on social media about this episode before the end of the day on November 10th, you'll be entered to win a free signed copy of their book, the Microsoft Teams Playbook. Your tweet or post just needs to have some content in it, like what did you enjoy about this episode? What did you learn about? Why should other people listen to the episode? So put that in the tweet or the post, and also include the hashtags EDUDuctTape, Jenallee, which is Jenallee, and empowered class. Those 3 hashtags. If you've got room, you could tag the 3 of us. That's unessential. The hashtags are what's important. And again, you could tweet it. You could post it on Instagram. You could post it as an Instagram story. You could post it publicly on Facebook. Whatever you want, as long as it's public, so that we could see it, so that we know to enter you in to win that one free signed copy of their book. And again, the deadline is the end of the day on November 10th. So on November 10th, at the end of the day, I will look up those hashtags and find all of the tweets in there, make sure they met all the requirements, put them in a hat, and pull one out. Actually, I'll probably put them in a random name picker online. why am I blanking on the name of the random name picker I normally use? Wheel of Names. That's what I normally use, wheelofnames.com. I'll throw them in wheelofnames.com. Okay, next up, we've got the adjacent possible. But before we get to the celebration of the adjacent possible, here's a message from a duct taper.
Hi, my name is Jason Reagan, and I am a design teacher from Incheon, South Korea. I love the educational duct tape book because there's so much in there about formative assessment and the different ways you can use it. And I certainly think we could use more formative assessment that's meaningful.
Well, thank you for that, Jason. A reminder to you out there that I would love to have your endorsement for the book to share here within the show. So if you are up for it, there's a link in the show notes to the Flipgrid or the SpeakPipe where you could share that audio that I could then use within the podcast later. The contest that people were participating in earlier to win a free signed copy for a friend ended on Halloween, but I will still smile if you send in one of those messages. So there is a link in the show notes if you would like to add one of those audio endorsements for the book. I would love that. Next up, time for the celebration of the adjacent possible. This is the time where we hear new possibilities from the minds that are adjacent to us, the adjacent possible. Other educators, other duct tapers, you. By hearing from each other and sharing with each other, we add new items to our own adjacent possibilities. So I've got two to share today. One comes from Nathan Hakey on Twitter. It was at N-A Hakey, Haikey. And he said, looking for recommendations on free word cloud sites. Any suggestions? And he tagged me and some other ed tech folks out there. And a lot of awesome ideas came in from people before I had time to even respond. I had two ideas first up. The first one that I had was Mentimeter, which is what I normally use for word clouds. It's great because you can collect it live. It works kind of like a Pear Deck or a Nearpod or something like that, where you give out a code, students join, they just type in the word, and it automatically goes into the word cloud, which is a really cool, easy, efficient way to do it. The pro is that it's live. The con is I'm not sure if you could do it asynchronously. I've never tried it asynchronously. Maybe you could. The other con is that you're capped to like 25 characters, and so they can't be really long things they say in the word cloud, which it's best that they're not anyhow. And the other downside is that you can't really change around the appearance of it very much. You can't get a very creative look in there. So the other alternative I was going to mention was a site called Wordle, Wordle. Now, Wordle no longer exists. I actually didn't know that until Nathan asked this question. I went to look it up, and I was like, oh, Wordle is no longer there. So I actually wonder if maybe that's why Nathan was asking the question. So Wordle is gone. So that's not an option anymore. So we've got to think about some other options. So the first one is Mentimeter, which is what I have used in the past for it, and also was suggested in the replies by John Carippo as well, and somebody else I'm looking here, and Adam Moeller also suggested Mentimeter. So I agree. And Jill Maynor, I apologize, Jill, if I'm not pronouncing that correctly or not. Jill Maynor also suggested Mentimeter. The next one is Flippity. I love the tools at flippity.net. Flippity.net, a lot of their features run from spreadsheets, but they've transitioned a lot of them to working without a spreadsheet. So flippity.net has a space where you could just paste in a set of words. And obviously, the more you list it, the bigger it'll show up, and it will generate the word cloud for you. And you could change the color and the font and rearrange them. And the responses can be multiple words. It doesn't just have to be one word responses. The upside here is it's really easy to use. It's got some customization a little bit because you can change color and text and things like that. The downside is it doesn't collect the responses. So you need to use something like a Google form maybe to collect the responses and then copy them and then paste them into the Flippity word cloud. That's how Wordle worked as well back in the day. Not how Mentimeter works though. Mentimeter, it collects them live and generates it live for you right there. Some other options that were suggested in the responses, Summer Winetier and somebody else, Lauren Richardson, both said Slido. I've researched Slido a little bit. Slido is a presentation response and audience engagement tool, kind of similar to a Pear Deck or Nearpod kind of thing, maybe a little closer to something like Poll Everywhere, which works not just in the education space, but outside the education space to keep audiences involved in a presentation. And Slido works as an add-on too in Google Slides, and I think in PowerPoint as well. So that's a nice suggestion from them there, and that does have word clouds built into it. I've never used them, but that's a good suggestion to use Slido, especially with the Google Slides add-on. Amanda Sandoval reminded me of one that I had forgotten about called Answer Garden. And I really like Answer Garden because you can post a link to it asynchronously, self-paced, and students can go in there whenever and respond to a question. And if you choose the right settings, you can have it generate a word cloud as they respond. So it's really cool and kind of like a HyperDoc or something like that to have them responding just whenever they get to that part, and it generates that word cloud. So Answer Garden is a good choice as well. So Amanda, thank you for reminding me of that. Let's see, what else was in the responses? Those were, and the other one that was in the responses, the last one that was in the responses, Jennifer Scott at Gen Technology on Twitter suggested wordart.com. Now, I've seen WordArt, and I've just never tried it, so I wasn't sure if it was trustworthy. I saw that there was pricing, but it looks like after Jen recommended it, I went and looked at it more. It looks like you only have to pay if you want like super high quality images of your Wordle or your word clouds. So it looks like a good option then. Jen pointed out, she said, the site is not collaborative, but the results are worth it. She says you have to use a form or sheets to gather the words and then import them in. And you could use the visualize option to see your changes. What's neat about WordArt is you can form them into different shapes. So maybe you make your word cloud into a heart or into a circle or something like that. So you can pick a certain arrangement using WordArt. So WordArt's definitely a good one to check. As always, you want to check these things, check the privacy, check the security, check how they work on your school network, check and see if your school's technology director or whoever approves them. So that's one that, who knows, maybe they don't. A couple other that came up as I was kind of researching this, ABC, which I hate mentioning ABC because I don't know. That tool, I always feel negatively about that tool. Maybe I'm wrong. But ABC, it's just loaded with ads, and it seems like it was a crutch for some people during the pandemic, and I don't feel like it's better than Cool Math Games, that's for sure. But anyhow, ABC does also have a word cloud option on there, so that's another one that Nathan can check out. And the final one is Poll Everywhere. Poll Everywhere does have a word cloud option in it too, so similar to Slido and Mentimeter. Actually, they're all very similar tools. You can gather audience responses and have them appear in Poll Everywhere. As usual with all of these tools, you just kind of pick the one that best meets your needs and your setting. If maybe you already use Poll Everywhere, or if maybe your kids use ABC regularly for homework assignments or practice or something like that, or maybe if you need it to have a special arrangement, maybe you use wordart.com, or maybe if it's got to be asynchronous, you use Answer Garden. So just go back through there if this is you that needs it, and listen to these different things and find the one that best meets your needs. So Nathan, I hope that helps you out, and I hope it helps the rest of you out too to learn some different word cloud options. And if you have other ones you would share, I will put a link to that tweet in the show notes, and you can hop into the actual tweet and respond there and share about yours. Or if you're not on Twitter, message me and maybe I'll share it in an upcoming show. And remember, you're always welcome to share one of these questions too. One of my friends, Molly Clodar, actually shared another question. That's the second one I want to share today. Molly shared it on Twitter, and she said, I'm trying to add a Jamboard into Seesaw where each student has their own interactive jam that they can work with, but it seems like I can't add a Jamboard as a Seesaw activity. Any advice? And then she tagged me and a couple other ed tech friends. And unfortunately for Molly, I did not have a good answer for this one. Sometimes, unfortunately, you just need other people to confirm, yeah, sorry, that's not going to work, but at least you could stop searching for right now. So in Seesaw, you can create activities, certain types of activities that generate copies for the students, kind of the way Google Classroom works, but that does not work with Jamboard activities. However, Tim Evans suggested using a forced copy link. So he said, take the link to a Jamboard, make sure it's shared so that students can access it, take the link and then cut the end of it off where it says viewer down at the end and add the word copy down at the end. So I think you start from viewer, start from after the letters and numbers where it says viewer, cut everything off from viewer onto the end and just replace it with the word copy. And then you can place that link into the Seesaw activity and they'll each get their own copy of the Jamboard that way. Not ideal, I know, Molly, because it's not then going to automatically turn it back in for you. The student's then going to have to go submit that link to you, I think, or something like that, so you can get to it. But at least it does create the individual Jamboard for everybody. Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes the questions don't always have a perfect answer, so I'm sorry for that. But if you have questions, whether or not they have perfect answers, please do feel free to share them. I'd love to address them and think about them and puzzle over them and potentially learn from them. That's what the Adjacent Possible is. So what happens when we do this stuff is we all learn from this process. You could share feedback, ask a question, share a takeaway, or share something that you're excited about, whatever you prefer. You could do that with an Apple Podcast review, a post on social media with hashtag #EduDuckTape, on this show's Flipgrid at flipgrid.com/EduDuckTape, or on the show's SpeakPipe page at speakpipe.com/EduDuckTape. Those links, of course, are also in the show notes. And if you share something on one of those platforms, you've got a really good chance that I'll share it here in an upcoming episode. All right, last but not least, before the bell rings on this lesson, I've got to give you your homework for today. This is my homework of who you've got to go tell about the Educational Duct Tape podcast. I want you to go find an educator who likes hazy, juicy IPAs like me and tell them about the Educational Duct Tape podcast. Say, hey, you like hazy, juicy IPA beers? Go listen to the Educational Duct Tape podcast because so does the host, Jake. You can buy him a beer if you're ever in person with him, or, just listen to the podcast while you sip on a good beer. But also they should message me and tell me which beers they're excited about, because I could then add those to my notes and try them out later. You know what? I think it's time for me to go have a beer right now. Okay, that does it for today's episode. Check the show notes for details about signing up for my newsletter, joining the Duct Tapers Facebook group, inquiring about having me speak at an upcoming event, getting some podcast stickers, and more. And don't forget to do your homework. As always, as a parent, I'm grateful for the work you do, and as an educator, I'm proud of your dedication to lifelong learning.
Thank you for listening to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. Please consider rating and reviewing the show on your favorite podcast app. #EduDuckTape.
Hey, Educational Duct Tape and EdTech Integration Mindset readers. You are a reader of the book, aren't you? I hope you are. If you are, I've got a little quiz for you. Did you laugh at least once while reading the book? Did you feel more equipped to integrate technology after reading it? Did you learn some stuff? Will that experience benefit your students? Do you want to see your colleagues grow as EdTech integrators too? Do you want to see their students' experience improve? Do you want some free educational duct tape swag? Will you do me a favor? Well, if you answered yes to all of those questions, follow this simple 2-step process. Review the book on Amazon or Goodreads or another book reviews platform, and then head to eduducttape.com/review swag to claim your free swag bundle, and I'll drop it in the mail to you. Thanks for your support.